Aloha. It's really interesting that some of the more reports that we get about some strange dealings come from night watchmen and security guards. And if you ever had the opportunity of working in these fields, you understand why. Because a lot of times we're asked to go out and man a post that's isolated somewhere dark and pretty scary. And I was faced with that situation early in my life. I had just gotten married and settled in Laie, and I found a job working as a security guard at the Apana station. And the Apana station is located across the street from present day Turtle Bay. It's up in a hill. And this Apana station is a telecommunication site, and it's manned all the time by workers who are working in there. And if you drive by Kahuku and you pass the Turtle Bay, look up towards the mountain and you see a big round thing that looks like a giant golf ball. That's the Apana site. The interesting thing about this site is that it was one of the first radar stations that was set up during World War, in the days just before World War II broke out. And the radar units at this site picked up the Japanese flight coming in to bomb Pearl Harbor. They were able to pick that up. So that's a historical place. Anyway, when I was hired to work up there, my hours were working late at night, and it normally went from about 10 o'clock at night until about 6 o'clock in the morning the next day. And sometimes I would work double shifts, which means I would be up there for 12 hours at a time on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And in those 3 days, I normally made my 40-hour week. So I was up there quite a lot. On my first day at the job, I met a person that was working, another guard that was working there for several years. And one of the things that he told me is, Davey, when you come up here, watch where you park your car. Don't park your car near the gate. And when I asked him why, he kind of like snickered. He says, well, if you park by the gate, you're going to find out why. Okay. So I was curious about it, but I didn't want to challenge them. They're old timers, and he was up there for a long time, and so I listened to him. And every time I came up, I made sure that I didn't park by the gate, and instead I move in my car further in. Anyway, on this particular night, when I drove up, it was raining really hard, and the road was really muddy and dirty, and I got mud all over my car and my tires. And by the time I drove up to Apana, when you come into the Apana site, it's a gated enclosure of almost roughly about 2 acres, and they have high fence, chain link fence all around the place. And there's a nice road that runs in. Well, I didn't want to drag my road, drag all of the mud that I had on my car into the site. So I pulled in and pulled my car just inside the gate. Then I parked there and left my car there. And I did my rounds. The first thing we do is when we get up there, we walk into the building and use the phone and call and notify the people at dispatch that we're on site, so we're credited for being there. Anyway, so I called, and my rounds is I walk the perimeter to check the fence, and so I do that several times during my watch. And it wasn't scary at all. Getting there was the scariest part, because you have to drive through the mountains, and it's dark and it's muddy road. You're not too sure if you're going to make it. But once you get to the site, it's fully lit. It's like a big football field with huge lights, and everything is well lit. So I walked the perimeter, and people been doing this for so long. There's a trail that no grass is growing, so you just stay on a trail and you follow that, and you know where the other security guards been. Anyway, I did my rounds, and finally, about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, just before the sun came up, I had a strange experience. And this strange experience, I was eating my lunch. And while I was eating my lunch, I felt my car shaking. And rock kept on rocking to the side. And the first thing in my mind, I thought, wow, we have an earthquake. But I looked outside of the car, the fence wasn't moving, the trees were okay, so was still, nothing else. So I got out of the car and I looked around, and my car was still kind of shaking a little bit, but not as bad as when I was in there. So I thought nothing of it and went back inside in the car and started sitting, and it started rocking again. And finally I said, well, what's going on? So I jump out of the car and I walk around the car, and my car was covered with mud on the side panels. And as I started looking at the side panels, I noticed something strange. There are smudges just below, I guess the plastic guard on the doors. Just below that, there are smudges. As I looked at the smudges, on some of them, they looked like handprints. Yeah, handprints. I walked around the car. On one side you had these smudges, and on the other side you had these smudges, and they looked like handprints. And I'm thinking to myself, are there little kids up here? What's happening? So I got into my car, and remembering that I'm not supposed to park there, I moved my car further up, and for the rest of the night, there was nothing going on. So the following day, I was scheduled to have my relief come up about 7:30, and when he arrived, he looked at me and he knew something was wrong, and he says, "Hey, Dave, you okay?" He says, "Oh, last night, man, you should have seen. My car was rocking and everything." And he looked at me. He says, "Lolo, you didn't park next to the gate." I go, "Yeah, the car was all muddy." And I took him around the car, and I showed him these little smudges. And he started laughing. I says, "Ah, you lucky the Menehune never kill you." And so I look at him, "Menehune?" I said, "Yeah, we told you not to park over there because it's where the Menehune walk all the time." So he told me that many of these guys that had parked their cars up there, they had the cars, same thing, rock. Some of the cars were rocked so bad, some of them almost tipped over. So all of the people that had that experience with them never parked their cars over there. And so that was kind of like a warning to me. And after experiencing that, I never parked close to the same spot again. However, I did continue working over there for almost a year. And every time I made my rounds on certain nights, especially when I walked around the perimeter and came to the front gate where I had parked, sometimes I would hear human voices and human voices laughing and kind of like poking fun at me. And when I hear them, I just sort of ignore it and walk away, and never wanted to interact with them. So these were Menehune that came, and I'm fortunate to survive them. And they were real cool, just rocking my car, but they did not hurt me. So this is my story for today. If you enjoy the stories I've been sharing with you, please share it with other people and subscribe to my channel. And this is Dave Wallace and Waiwa saying aloha.